I'm Duncan MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod.
My name is Ichabod Crane.
Name's MacGyver. Colonel Jack O'Neill, SG-1.
I am Batman!
Hello, I'm the Doctor.
So there's this man, he has a time machine. Up and down history he goes, zip, 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 getting into scrapes.
For years, and maybe more than that, right, Mac? But how long has it been? Has it been 6, 7 years ago?
Are you telling me that you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
Hey, now wait a minute. Now wait just a minute.
Human beings were not meant to sit in little cubicles staring at computer screens all day.
I've got something for you.
Oh, merci, Sonor. Just one more thing, sir.
Oh boy.
Just like that. Bing, bang, boom.
At this point, I'd settle for the boom.
They'd love it here, don't you think?
This is what I'm saying.
And by the way, where is your podcast? Tell everybody that's here.
Welcome to the Never Gets Old podcast. The podcast of all we love in TV, movies, music, and comics. With your hosts, Matt Jackson and Nathan Shell. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Facebook, and YouTube. Donations at paypal.com at macwjackson@comcast.net.
Listen to my taping songs. DJ saying that they're too long. His guitar may be silenced, but his soul goes on and on. Alone again, alone again. His stories were like us, a beginning and an end. Alone again. Now I listen in my room.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Never Gets Old podcast. I'm your host, Matt Jackson, and I have a couple guests. One you already remember from a previous episode, Charles Rosenay, and we have Mark Arnold joining us, who I know his work anyway, but they have a new book together called, and I have it popping up because I have little tricks, Not Just Happy Together, The Turtles from A to Z, AM radio to Zappa. So how about that? Look at both of you already holding it up. See, I didn't have to go to the trouble to do this.
It's hard to hold up. I mean, it's
a big one.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
It's a big sucker.
So how you guys doing?
Well, after that intro, it's downhill from here, but we're doing all right.
Good.
I love your opening stuff. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those things where I wanted to basically get the spirit of what the show is, but then you just keep adding to it. I'm like, I got to know when to stop. There's so many great clips. And to have Nez, talking about me, I'm like, well, I'm using that. So I was thinking about this, and I admire the heck out of anybody who it's one thing to want to write a book, but that's a lot of work. Like, okay, I have thoughts in my head of writing a book, but all the research you got to do and all the you really have to be
nuts. Nuts is the word you're looking for.
I was going to say driven, but sure. What possesses you guys to hook up and do that?
Well, for me, I got to tell you that for years I said I'm never going to write a book. There's 20 years of putting out a Beatles magazine called Good Day Sunshine every other month, 6 times a year, 20 years. I said, that's it. I've done a book I put out hundreds of books. I'm never doing a book. And then I met Mark Arnold, and Mark Arnold is like the most prolific pop culture author out there. And he's putting out books on Harvey Comics and Mad magazines and the Monkees and, his armpits, you name it. He's got a book out on it. And he says, Charles, why don't we just write a book together? And I go, okay, as long as it's not on the music. He goes, no, it has to be music. I go, okay, well, nothing like Turtles or a band. He goes, yeah, I wanted to do the Turtles. And that's how we got to be. Does that make any sense? No, but it's all fun and games,
Well, it's probably like being a musician. I know if I'm in the room with another musician and you get cooking, you just inspire each other. Like, all right, I didn't want to do that song, but you got a good riff going. So, all right, we're going to, next thing you know, you're trading off, and it's like adrenaline. You feed off each other.
We do. There's no doubt about that. Mark's more of the archivist, more of the historian, a much better researcher than I'll ever be. And it's his dedication and I think my silliness that make a book fun. And we really click together so well. And we discuss along the way the whole process. As you can see, I never let him talk, and that's what I love about it. And you know what? The end result speaks volumes, and I think that we work together phenomenally. I can't wait to do more projects.
Well, Mark, when did you start? Like, who started this? Who came to who?
We were both on a StreamYard podcast, quite similar to this, with a man named Plastic EP, and he's an Australian that randomly had us on together as Monkees fans. And I knew of Charles because I subscribed to Good Day Sunshine 800 years ago and got most of the issues. I found out I don't have the first 16 of them, but that's okay. Because I was looking through my box the other day and it's like, oh, I started with 17. Okay, got it. Okay. All right. But yeah, and it's like way back when I knew the name, I'd get the cassette tapes because occasionally they did the cassette tapes and you'd hear his voice and, it's like, and I got another bootleg album that he did somewhere along the line. And it's like, oh, he did that too. And, I just said, hey, this is a pretty cool guy, but he's on the East Coast. I'll never meet him, and, I even thought about doing his Beatles trip that he does every year. And I just said, I'm too I don't have enough money. Well, originally I was too young and my parents said no. That shows you how long ago it was. And then I never had any money. And then last year I was going to go. And then this year I'm finally going to go. So
he's actually going on the Beatles London and Liverpool.
Hey, all right.
So, but that doesn't answer how we connected on.
I said Plastic EP show. And so, Charles would do goofy stuff. Like we would do these reviews of the various Monkees albums. I know this doesn't really talk about the Turtles, but it's like
you're talking to the right
so
guy.
Each show is about a different album. So we do the Monkees one week and more of the Monkees the next week, Headquarters the next week. And by the time we got to Instant Replay and Changes and Pool It and everything like that, we were getting tired. And so Charles would like pull out the wigs. He'd dress up in drag. He'd pull out these crazy little baby characters from his horror haunted houses and stuff like that. And Plastic EP didn't know what to think, and other people that were on the podcast with us were just like, not even paying attention. I was meanwhile busting up laughing just because it was so hysterical. So that's how we found we had some sort of connection that we both had the same zany type of humor. I mean, I could keep it straight for a book, but it's like I put my humor in there and stuff like that. So but
yeah, well, that's otherwise you're just reading a dictionary,
Yeah.
Like anybody can throw the facts on there. It's when you get your personality in there a little bit that really makes the difference.
Yeah. So the next part of it is that Mark had done a few books where him and another author kind of went, Siskel and Ebert on it. They would give their opinions on songs and they would do, a counter discussion. One would like it, the next one wouldn't, and on and on and on. And we thought, the Turtles were a band that seriously needed a definitive I don't want to say anthology. I hate to use a set word, but the most comprehensive book possible, which not only listed every song they did, but Mark's and my reviews of all the songs.
Sure.
And then interview as many people connected to the Turtles legacy as possible and get that in there. And then each of us, give our appeal. The big goal is to someday hopefully get these guys into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We really feel
they're not yet.
Thank you.
That's so stupid.
That's usually
the sin, right?
The answer. Yeah. They're not yet. Yeah.
Holy crap.
That was the perfect response. Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome.
Yeah, they have to be, and we hope that this book serves as maybe that textbook reason why they should be, and hopefully will be eventually.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't get anybody from the 70s or 80s beyond until you get everybody from the 60s and 50s. And, I mean, that's your foundation. All these guys had like the Everly Brothers as their heroes. And, and so people since the Turtles have had the Turtles and the Monkees as their inspiration.
That's it.
It's I always say to be a Monkees fan is the more knowledge you get, the more frustrated you get, because we spend our life straightening out people's, misinformation.
Yeah.
And so like that with the Turtles, come on.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. The Monkees and the Turtles, maybe the Raiders. You can go on, but those are the ones at the top of my list. And Mark agrees who should be in that Rock and Roll of Fame. And that could be a whole nother, podcast. That's a whole nother topic.
But it'd be full of rage.
Well, I did write I did write a kind of a rageful rant in this book about it, and I kind of put out every argument. It's like, oh, the Turtles aren't in there because they're funny. Well, the Beatles are funny,
Right.
and they're in there.
Yeah.
Well, the Turtles can't be in there because they didn't write their own music. Well, they did write their own music. They didn't write all of it, but they wrote a lot of stuff. Oh, the Turtles can't be in there because they didn't play their own music with their own instruments, the old saw on that. And it's like, no, the Turtles did play their own instruments. They didn't even use the Wrecking Crew, Charles just loves to say the story. So, they actually did use their own instruments. So it's like, any argument you'd say, oh, well, they were only around, a couple years. Well, there's a couple other bands in there that have only been there a couple of years,
Yeah.
And if you go by songwriting, Elvis Presley never wrote a song, it's like.
Exactly. But, I think, I don't know if it was Nez had said it, but he really broke it down in a way to say, look, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is not decided by the fans. So the fans love us and respect us. This guy in an office who has a prejudice against us doesn't matter. He doesn't want us in his club. That's fine. We don't need to be in his club. The right people love us. And I think it's the same with the Turtles. I mean, the fact that we're even discussing this book proves, they're only around a couple years. Yeah, but look at what they did.
What's the title of the book?
Right?
Not just happy together. You want to shake the world. Hello?
Yeah. I mean, I remember, as I'm sure you guys do, the Gary Shandling show.
Yeah.
When he had them on.
Yes.
I remember, what, it was 87, I want to say?
Something around that. Yeah.
Somewhere. And, I watch Gary Shandling, it's quirky and whatever. And I'm like, that the guys from the Turtles? Holy crap. All right. And it was like, cool. Good for you. And I don't say I know a lot about them, but it's the Turtles. You don't just go, whatever. You go, no, look at this. This is cool.
Well,
and it really sparked, I don't know, a renewed interest in people, but it made sure they stayed in the mind.
Well, it's happened over and over the years.
Yeah.
So, that's an example. Another example is you hear Happy Together played like on a TV commercial or on a promo for a series or something. And, movies, it's like, and what is old is new again. And then, even today, the Happy Together tour keeps going every year, things like that, so.
And it is, I mean, these songs are timeless, which is why they keep getting used, because it puts you right into a mind frame, whether you knew about who did it or not. Like, my kids are educated. They're in first year of high school and grade school, but I've taught them well. They know their stuff, and they ripple out to their friends to teach them something beyond Taylor Swift. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so when they hear these songs, if they don't already know, they'll go, oh, that's catchy. Who is that? Oh, all right. Thank you for asking. And now we go down that rabbit hole.
Yes.
In which case you bring up the songs, you go, all right, wait, this is another good one. And you just start doing that. Next thing you know, you have a new generation of fans.
Yeah, I love driving in the car with the kids, and they'll put on one song, and I go, wait, this is very reminiscent of, and I put on the Raspberry. And whoa, that's great. Who are these guys? And they're similar to Badfinger. And we go that great rabbit hole that you're talking about. You can go on and on. Just walking by today, the kids were listening to Stevie Wonder. And I'm like, what? This is great. Why are you listening to him? Because his songs are so great, Dad. And there's Sir Duke and Signed, Sealed, Delivered. I was like, yes, this is great. For a while there, I had to wean them off the Turtles because when we were doing research on the book, that's all that was being played in the Rosenay household. Because there were so many songs that Mark knows, Mac, I had never heard. And I was like, what? This band, how is this not a hit? How are these guys not like, part of everyone's DNA beyond the handful of songs or the dozen songs, whatever it is? So many songs were amazing beyond the hits.
Yeah, like besides Happy Together. Give me some. Throw some at me.
All right, we'll alternate. Mark, go first.
It ain't me, babe.
She'd rather be with me.
You, baby.
Eleanor.
You showed me.
You took the one I was going to say. You, baby. These are
I
all.
said you, baby.
He got you on that one.
Say, let me be.
I lose. So these were the hits. These are the ones that top 40 rated.
Excuse me.
Played the heck out. These are the one everyone know. But there's so many beyond that. I like bringing up a song because my Beatle fans, when they hear this, it's their mouths drop. It's like the Ruddles times Utopia times all these bands that really Klaatu. And it's a song called "We Are Gumby," right, Mark? Is that the song? Yeah. And it's so psychedelic Beatles that your mouth will drop when you hear it. You're like, what? How could I have not known about this song? And I think that Mark brings up all the reasons as why they were told they couldn't be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the comedy, all that stuff. And for me, the reason I loved and still love the Turtles and the Monkees and the Beatles, those three, music first, great singers, personality, and comedy. I want that in a bit. I want to go see a show where it's not just the same, songs, Hotel California, followed by Eagles, but not a song where it's song after song, and I could have just listened to my album. I want the guys schmoozing the crowd. I want them telling jokes. I want them shaking their head and just winking at each other. All the things that those three bands did is my definition of a band that I love, want to see, want to live with, want them to be part of my life, the rest of my life.
And they're timeless. Like the music itself, even though you could say, oh, 60s, whatever. Yeah, okay, it started then, but you could play it today and you wouldn't know the difference between like good music today, which is rare, we know, but like a solid band that's good and cares about harmony and writing good words and great riffs. That's timeless. And obviously nobody really needs to say, oh, the Beatles, have you heard of them? But like to push like the Turtles and the Monkees to go, you seriously sit down and listen.
It's hooks. It's stuff you can sing along to and smile along to. I mean, I think that's so missing. Taylor Swift has great songs, and there's a ton of people who have great songs. But to have song after song that you can sing along to, you talked about the riffs that stay in your head and that you don't care that they're in your head. There's some songs you get a riff in the head. It's like, oh, I got to play a Cowsill song just to get it out of my head. You want these songs in your head because they're that good and they're fun and they make you happy.
And for me, it makes you happy and it makes me go, I got to pick up my guitar and learn this song.
Oh, wow.
And then I want to write a song similar, but not rip it off. But it inspires me to contribute to the musical world. That's how like the Monkees were. That as soon as I saw the first episode and they come walking in with their guitar cases, I went, that's what I want to do. There it is.
One thing I like about late 60s music in general, and you could say, oh, the Beatles led the way or the Beach Boys led the way or whatever. It doesn't really matter who led the way. They all did it.
Right.
Is the willingness to put different sounds, different musical instruments, different sound effects and things like that. I mean, there's one song, and Charles can elaborate on it, that he never knew about, but it has great sound effects called Sound Asleep. And if you want to go on about that one, it should have been a hit, but anyway.
Should have been a hit, and I think I rave about it in the book. But I want to expand upon what Mark is saying, because you talk about Beatles and you talk about Monkees. With the Monkees, you went from country western to rock to experimental, to folk. I mean, it was like the Beatles everywhere. Same with those Turtles. And you're listening to folk rock, you're listening to surf instrumentals, you're listening to experimental, you're listening to novelty, and you're listening to hard rock. You're across the board with those type of bands. You're getting such a variety, and it's high quality variety.
Right. I mean, there's some bands that you go, oh, if you like ZZ Top or AC/DC, great. You're going to love everything they do because everything you hear is the same kind of thing. But you're right. Like there's, if you're a good, solid band that you don't lock yourself into a sound. I've heard the band say, we never had a sound.
The Turtles even took it one step further with their Battle of the Bands album, is that they became these other bands. So they did a country band, they did a bluegrass band, they did a psychedelic band, they did just a surf band, and it was all them, but they changed total style and even dressed the part with costumes to prove the point, send it home,
So true. Yeah.
It is inspiring, which I think is one of those things that you go, that's why they last. That's why they need to be celebrated and pushed on people, because it's not just, if you like, like I said, those other bands, you like that, you're gonna like everything. But if you don't, you're lost. That's it. Yeah. But with these bands that we're talking about, you're gonna find there's something for everybody. You never go, I've heard one song and that's it. I don't need to hear it. No, there's so much more to hear.
We're also really proud, of the interviews that are in the book, because we were able to get Howard Kalin, who's the lead singer, him and Mark Volman, Flo and Eddie, the Turtles. Yeah. They're the two mainstays. And we were able to get most of the B players, the players who played with them, who recorded with them, were friends with them, toured with them, were part of their different ensembles through the years. But to get Howard Kalin was really a special treat. Mark mentioned Plastic EP earlier, and he's this Australian podcaster who's a great guy. And somehow him and I worked for years trying to get Howard to do an interview, and Howard would say yes, and then not do it. That was his, and then a lot of people are like,
Arnold. Yeah. They go, I'd love to do it. When? I'll get back to you.
Never happens. Yeah. And we thought this was a never happening thing, and I'll tell you why. Back in 2010, around that time, 12 years ago, 14 years ago, whenever it was, I had asked him to give me a top 10 list for my first book. Before I knew I was doing a book, I was getting top 10 lists back then, and I was using them for a newsletter. And he promised me a top 10 list for the first book of top 10 horror lists. And he promised it, and he goes, you must know I'm a horror fan under it all. And that was the greatest answer. I go, yes. And
yes, I did. Yes.
And 20 years later, I never got the list. So it was kind of that same thing. I thought he was going to say yes to this interview and not do it because he doesn't do interviews. He's retired. Mark Volman is carrying the torch. He's the one who plays in the Happy Together tours. And sure enough, he showed up. And when he did, we were both gobsmacked. We didn't believe it. Mark gave me a list of questions to ask him just in case, many of which he looked at me like I was an alien when I asked them. And to this day, Plastic EP kids me about them. But they were crucial for the book. That was the intent, to ask certain questions. You can ask them, what was it like recording Happy Together? It's easy to ask but we did a little deeper dive with the interview. And it's probably the last interview, as far as we know, that he's given, and might be the last interview he ever gives. So we probably should have splattered that on the cover. Final interview by, but
yeah, I'm not dead yet.
Right.
Yeah, he would probably just do another one just to spite.
He would do another one. He would do another 100 just to spite that, right?
Yeah,
I saw somebody do that on a book.
Keep it on the down low.
I saw somebody do that on a book, and the person spoke up, was like, "Not dead yet. don't put me in the grave. Come on." And I go, "Just trying to sell a book." Well, don't lie. You don't know.
I mean, I asked them, don't you have that itch to just surprise the guys when they're in town and just jump on stage and do a song or two? And he said, no. He just
Really?
Yeah, he reached a certain point where he didn't want to tour again. He didn't want to go on stage again. Didn't get on another bus or a plane. And you know what? That's fine. He's entitled to not have to do that if he doesn't want
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that Nez went until his dying day playing on stage was a blessing. If he had decided to just retire 20, 30 years ago and go, John, don't need to, because he didn't need to. He did it because he loved it.
No.
But if he had said, done, we'd go, oh, well, that sucks. But at the same time, dude, you want to sit around your house all day and do nothing? You've earned it. You've earned it 1 trillion times over.
Yeah, very, very similar. I think they both spend their off hours doing this. What Nez did in his quiet time alone is probably something that Howard does, but I'm just speculating.
He's going to give you a phone call.
Well, I always think this about Nesmith is that he never really got it until like the last 5 or 6 years of his life, and God bless him, they finally get it.
I was there for it.
He never really got, what's this fandom about? Who cares?
Right.
And then
he clicked. And the way
clicked.
he explained it was he was in the center of the storm. So he's looking out where everybody else is looking in. And so he only thinks I have to be creative, and anything he read was inaccurate or mean. So he thought nobody cares, nobody really follows me. And only through like letters from myself through the years and the friendships and subtly saying, we love you, like that kind of thing. The last few years he went, oh, and that whole, okay, so I was wrong all these years. And to have people come to him at conventions and, he's like, really, you actually, wow, you follow what I do. I love that. I'm so glad he got that, because again, to love Nez is to also be freaking frustrated because he was one of the most humble guys. You try and give him a compliment and he'd laugh and like downplay whatever. Like, no, he's the only guy in my entire life that I could call a genius. And he would go, oh, come on, no. And he downplayed everything to the point where you're going, just take the freaking compliment, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he did at the end, and I was glad to watch it. Like,
and Mark doesn't know, but you established a really amazing synergy with
him. He was wonderful to me. I had written to him since the 80s. Never knew if he got it. My band's name is Harmony Constant. My wife and I met at a Borders, and when I said, oh, you're in the back playing with your band, I'm a singer-songwriter. What kind of songs do you do? She goes, well, we do a Mike Nesmith song. And I went, and I grabbed her, and I was like, thank you, God. I got it. This is the one, And we invited him to our wedding and all that. So about, I don't know, a bunch of years ago when he was doing conventions, met him after a concert. And I walked up to introduce myself, and he already knew of me and loved my music and followed me on Facebook. And from then on, Charles knows, from then on, he was wonderful. He was always comfortable with me. And I love that friendship. And it's also surreal because, again, you got the guy from the Monkees, the famous guy, but I look at him as the guy who could have been my neighbor, and like I can walk up and hug at any point. Like that's so bizarre to me even today. And I can sing his songs still. I can watch him on TV, but I get choked up when I think about him because I could feel him standing on me with his hand on my shoulder.
Yeah.
He'd hold me close, and like if somebody else was talking to him, he'd go like hang on to me, like don't go anywhere, and talk to them, and I still feel that hand, and I'll get like weepy and because I miss him so freaking much.
So you have to, Mac, elaborate on that when you're on Mark's podcast, Fun Ideas podcast, because I've interviewed you for the Monkees interview show. Mm-hmm. You interviewed me for the Beatles top 10 list book. So the only missing element now is I think you have to be on Mark's podcast.
I didn't even know Mark had his own podcast.
Yeah, I got a podcast.
You know what? It's the joke. Actually, everybody has a podcast. Right? It's like everybody has. However,
everybody has a podcast.
That's not necessarily a great thing. There's many people out there that Charles and I know have a podcast. We've talked about that.
Oh, yeah.
Just because you want to have one doesn't mean you necessarily.
But
have
it helped
Go ahead.
It helped, but to bring it back to the Turtles book, I mean, that's where we got a lot of people to interview. I mean, I didn't get Kalen because he promised him to Plastic. That's fine. If he wanted to do my show too, I would have welcomed him. But hey, but majority of the interviews that are in our book, the actual podcast is available on YouTube and other places. So if you want to hear the full uncut interview, because sometimes we had to make edits when they went off subject and stuff like that, and but it's like that's where it is. So we had Johnny Barbada, and we had I can't think of everybody. Andy Kahn. We had
Greg Hawkes from the Cars, who played Spanky McFarlane, in our gang because they were very close with the Turtles. Yeah.
Now and that's fun. Do you ever feel with any of them? Do you ever feel rushed? Because with me, I always go, give me at least an hour. If we go beyond, great.
Yeah.
But and hardly ever have I had people go, all right, and go. And you're okay, limited time. Most people you get that will hang out.
I've had a couple limited time things, but at least I know this in advance. We had Dina Martin. For a Monkees project we're working on, which Charles will probably talk about later. And she only gave us like 10 minutes or 15 minutes or something. And it's like, I'm fine. Okay, I will ask this and this and this. And,
we're not going to bond. I'm just going to throw questions at you and, hope for the best.
And we had like one question to go. And she said, okay, guys, so I think we're all set. I go, well, almost. And the only other thing I want to ask, I wasn't going to let her go. I had to get one more out of her.
One more.
Yeah, I know.
You know what? And you should, because that's also a nice way when you wrap up stuff. You're like, we're going to give one more. So back off. I'm going to ask it,
Yeah. The encore question.
That's smart. That's the way to, do it. Because you also don't want to hang on to them when you can see in their eyes that they're done. They're empty. There's nothing else to give.
Of course.
And you're like, I know you're probably enjoying yourself, but you look tired. Exactly. Yeah.
No. I want to share with you, being the Monkees aficionado that you are, that the book cover's photo and the back cover are unpublished photos from our Henry Diltz.
Yeah, I figured. That's nice. That's good that he gave that to you too.
Yeah. Him and Chip Douglas had a lot of crossover stuff, Turtles and Monkees. So they were very important to us for the book.
Henry seems like a sweetheart. I would love to get him on sometime.
Great.
Like he's one of those guys, but nobody minds him hanging around to take pictures.
We had him on the show. Charles we had to get him while he was driving. That was like the condition, but it worked. He had like a 45-minute drive. He talked the whole time, and we got what we needed. And
was it a video episode?
No, it turned out to be an audio
episode because hold it. He'd be,
yeah.
Here's the side of my face. Oh my God!
What's that flashing red light back there? Oh, pay no attention to that.
Thanks, guys. You maybe get a ticket. Yeah. So most of your chats have been good, huh?
Great.
Nice. Because it'd break your heart if it wasn't.
I don't have I don't have a memory of a negative interview. I don't, one of the people who we're not going to mention, who might have been mentioned earlier, went on a real crazy tangent about politics and all that. But that wasn't going to make it into the book.
Right.
He had to get it off his chest. It's probably what he spews every single day of his life, and that's fine. He talked about everything else we needed to know, and then threw in that stuff. So that's fine.
Yeah, I've had to edit some stuff where you go off on, which is fine. Hey, build relationships. I'm all for it. But at the same time, you're like, all right, can't really use this because you're talking about personal stuff and you may have murdered somebody. I'm going to take that right out. I don't want to incriminate you. Be a good host. But yeah, it's nice when your guests can feel relaxed and be able to shoot the bull. And also, I always tend, especially if it's someone who's a little weary of being on, I warn them ahead of time. I'll edit stuff out if you say something that I think is going to shine a bad light on you. And they go, oh, all right. So I'm used to journalists trying to get the dirt. I'm like, no, I don't want the dirt.
Yeah, I could tell you a good one on that.
See, because Mac didn't, because he didn't warn us about the.
Yeah, I know. Here's the dirt.
Yeah.
Okay, so one person I did want to get, and I did get, and I didn't go into the dirt. And if you want to look it up, you can look it up and find out what the dirt is. I won't discuss it here. But I wanted to interview Jerry Yester because he produced the Turtles' final unreleased album. And he was also in the Love and Spoonful, and he did other things. But he has a darker side to his life that, after I did the interview, people asked me, didn't you ask him about that? And I go, no, because it wasn't important to what I was talking about. I didn't care. And, he's paid for his transgressions, and we moved on. So, it wasn't important to, and if you want to look it up, it's on YouTube. So, there you go. Or not YouTube, on Google, on internet, anywhere, it's like.
And my view of it is who are we to ever go, hey, remember that bad mistake that everybody knows about? Right? Remember that? Remember how you hate that? It's like Art Garfunkel and Paul Simon go, hey, so you guys still hate each other? Leave them alone. There's more to them than their arguments.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned him, Mark, because I did interview him for the Monkees interview show on Monkey Mania Radio. Aside from the fact that he has a chapter in the book of top 10 Beatle lists.
Oh.
Which is just an accidental plug. I don't really mean to be bringing
my books are in that. See that bookcase back there? I got all 18 of my books.
You got to pimp them, buddy.
I'm missing 2 books, which are in the other room. My Mad books.
Handy. But
okay, I'll go get them.
People said, how can you, in good faith, interview him at all? Like, What? I mean. One thing has nothing to do with another. I can go down a list of ton of people. If I can interview Jerry Lee Lewis, I'm going to do it, and I'm not going to ask about his teenage. It's nothing to do with music. It's nothing to do with what we're talking about. It's a whole.
And also think about that. Like there are times, I want my work to be known, and I want it to be respected. Like I want it to get its due. But when it comes down to it, I don't need to be famous. I don't need to be in this like that kind, because you're open to the world digging through your crap. And then not only are they digging through your crap, they don't forget it. And well, hey, we could go on a tangent on that. We can go talk about the Turtles and the Monkees and the Beatles, and people love to go with gossip, not fact, but gossip, because isn't that more exciting? Yeah, but you're not helping the world.
Yeah.
So to be famous is to pray that every interaction that you have for the rest of your life, somebody doesn't go, hey, Jerry Lee, you like kids, do you? Like, you can't.
Yeah. Now, saying that, in our Turtles book, we don't shy away from talking about when Howard Kalin threw a tantrum, threw all the pool chairs into the swimming pool at this one private party. They were doing a performance. They stormed out and quit the Turtles for about 2 months. Because it happened. And it's part of the Turtles story.
Part of history. So you got it. If you take out a chunk, how do you get from here to over here? You have to do the bridge. Now, if you stay on that and just go, aren't we something? Then that would be bad taste.
Yeah.
But you're right.
And we went and talked about when they did the performance of the Whitehouse. That didn't go swimmingly well, 100%. There was problems there.
Yeah.
Yes.
that I don't know. Why? When was this?
You have to read the book.
Yeah, you have to read it. Yeah, there we go. Done. We got to make some money here. We're giving away all our secrets here. No. Okay, so
Nixons.
I'll tell the story briefly. Here's the so the Nixons were in the White House. Tricia Nixon, one of Richard Nixon's daughters, loved the Turtles apparently, and they thought that was kind of crazy. But they wanted her to. She wanted to invite the Turtles to the White House to perform, and they originally turned it down because they didn't like Nixon's politics and everything. And the label that they were on, which was White Whale, they said, "Well, this is not a political thing. He's not going to be there. You should do it. Just." like performing for the Queen or something. You're honoring your country or whatever. And they kind of swallowed their pride a little bit and said, okay, we'll do it, because, and, they did some crazy things in the Lincoln bedroom and the Oval Office, and they had the run of the place except for the upstairs private quarters. And they had this incident where the FBI was like bringing in their equipment. They didn't know how to handle the equipment, and they were bumbling and stumbling with the drum kit and everything, and they knocked over, and the box started ticking. They thought it was a bomb, so they had everyone hit the dirt, and then they took out this device, and the guy pulls out this little lever, and it starts going, he said, everybody get down, and it was an A tone for a metronome. That's all it was. But they destroyed the thing, and they brought it back, and it was all pulled apart and wet and everything. They doused it in water, and they go, it's a metronome. And they paid him a check like $75 for it. And I don't think they ever cashed it. And it's like, I think one of the band members still has it, but I mean, things like that happen. So, I mean, it's like, so we're not shy of putting some warts in it, but it's not dwelling on the warts. We're not, going,
Right. Well, and hey, that's a funny story.
It is a funny story, and they tell it better than I just did. If you watch the Turtles documentary, but anyway.
Oh, sure. I mean, can you imagine the fear that you have because they're going to shoot us now? We came to perform, and we didn't know we were that bad. Damn. Wow.
Well, Mark, alluded to the fact that we might have another project coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I want to, and we're talking about lurid things and things, with the Jerry. So the next project is we're doing a book on confidential detective who set the beautiful Carolyn Cohen on fire and have sex with me and die, my love. So that's our next book is a collection of confidential detective stories.
I see. Does it have a beat and you can dance to it?
I found something I want to put on eBay and just thought it was the most inappropriate thing to show right now. So that's why I went for it.
What's funny is you're going to pull that on somebody and they're going to go, interesting, yes. I will look forward to that, yes.
Yes, this part of the program is brought to you by Antacid.
Feeling pukey?
Anyway.
So, how long did it take you to write the whole thing?
About 2 years, maybe?
2 minutes.
About 2 years.
AI. No, sorry. Yeah. No, it was more than like 3 years. All said and done, because it took us that amount of time to do the interviews and transcribe them. Which, I can tell you an easy way to transcribe things I found out now that's come through the pike, but that's another story for another time. But at the time, I was actually listening to everything and transcribing it. But and then actually, I don't know what Charles did. He probably just was contemplating his navel. But in my case, I actually listened to every song and wrote little notes while I was listening to it. So
not a bad gig.
And when we got to like Zappa, there's some wag out there that says, you didn't have every Zappa song. Well, there's some Zappa songs that aren't very good. And if Mark's on the background just rattling a tambourine, and meanwhile Zappa's doing some nutso thing that, doesn't even make sense. It's not in the book, but it really, we're focusing on Flo and Eddie as singers, and when they were in Zappa's band, and they did a handful of really good tracks. They're a little more adult and risque, but so it has the Turtle stuff, the Frank Zappa Mothers of Invention stuff, the Flo and Eddie solo stuff, and then the children's stuff like We Are Gumby that he mentioned earlier. But they also did children's albums like Strawberry Shortcake and G.I. Joe and Care Bears and things like that. And a lot of people don't know that. Mm-hmm. And some of those songs aren't bad either. They're children's songs, but they're children's songs in the same sense as Chipmunks has children's songs. But some of those are pretty hit.
They're darn catchy, aren't they?
Yeah.
And of course, the theme song of the Gary Shandling Show, not just
that's in the book too.
That's them too.
We tried to put everything that we could find. I mean, they even sang, they sang backup with a lot of songs. They sang backup
Some
for.
examples.
Go ahead.
No,
What?
give us some examples.
Examples? Okay.
Yeah.
David Cassidy. No, but that is one. Seriously.
That's one, yes.
But Blondie, Bruce Springsteen,
Hungry Heart,
T-Rex, Mark Bolan.
Gone.
It goes on and on. They did a lot with a lot of different artists, and they were friends with everybody.
Right.
They had a radio show for a number of years. They had Ringo on the show. They reunited the Move, which was the ELO precursor, unbeknownst to them.
Really?
A hell of a way to reunite a group. Don't tell everyone and bring them onto the same radio show. They should have done that with the Beatles years ago.
Right. Yeah, honest to God. Well, Saturday Night Live tried, didn't they?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's how they should have done it. It's like, John, you're going to be host this week. Great. Paul, you're going to to be host this week. Great. George, you're going to be host this week.
They just all show up in the room
They
together.
all show up.
We have some scrap to get through,
They did it totally the wrong way. But anyway, by saying all that, yes. What was my point? I don't even know at this point.
That they did tons of stuff that people don't know about with other artists.
Right.
And had we, we covered all of that, but had we done all the minutia that was Zappa and all that, I mean, we're almost at 500 pages here. And we could have gone, you could go on forever, and then you have a 1,000-page book and it's not even readable. It's not even liftable. It's not even marketable.
Right.
At some point, you have to, make that call. But of course, if you're that Zappa fanatic, that one or two on the planet, and you didn't care about the Turtles' original stuff, and you didn't care about the stuff before the Turtles, the Crossfires, and you just wanted to read about the Zappa stuff, well, then, okay, agreed. There has to be another book of just Zappa stuff that the Turtles happen to be part of.
Sure. And I bet you it's been written, or it will be written, or, there's different stuff. Like, and Mark, there's so many Monkees books out there.
Yeah.
Yours included.
Great.
I'm all for, the anybody wants to keep adding things, great. What?
I said there's going to be 3. I mean, 3.
That's the next project. Is Mark and I are working on a Monkees book.
It isn't the confidential thing. Anyway.
Yeah.
What's your focus of it?
The focus is actually, we've taken the original Monkey comic books, which are faded and stained and blurred, and no one even has them in their collection.
I want them.
We've digitized the entire series so that it looks like it came out in 2024. I mean, the colors are brilliant. The balloon boxes where the words are bright white. It looks like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And we interviewed the original artist who did it, and he's just passed away, unfortunately. And he gave us his blessings, and he gave us the best interview. So it's a combination of a price guide, because we price out the values of all the comics. We show what they look like to an extent in the day, but what they could look like now with this unbelievable digital restoration. And then we reached out to a ton of celebrities and people connected to the Monkees, because that's kind of my thing with the top 10 list book. I like reaching out to celebrities and getting their comments on the Monkees. People like Michael DeBar and Anson Williams from Happy Days and Thomas Dolby. I mean, you wouldn't believe some of the people who've given us, their comments on Susie Quattro on the Monkees. And so that's all part of it. And it's, it's got something for everyone. But if you're a collector and never got the original comics, or you had a few and always wanted the complete set, or you have them but you've never seen them in this kind of pristine digitized, it's going to be a pretty special book.
You're doing God's work, let me tell you, because all my life, since I found out that there used to be Monkees comics, even though I'm sure, they're not getting their personalities right, it's still, I mean, maybe in the beginning they didn't.
They're not that
bad. It's not that bad. You'll be surprised.
Well, I'm dying. I've always I would love to have those books, but I'm not going to pay a fortune for a beat up comic. And then, but now if you're doing this, well, I'm thrilled.
Hopefully it'll fill a void, and it'll be so special, and it'll be an honor to the original artists and the comics and whoever was the talent behind them. I think fans are going to love the book.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, you're doing God's work because nobody else thought to do it before. And meanwhile, I'm here in my house going, God, I wish somebody would restore those freaking books and make them available. You're doing it. Like, that's
Mark, we got to tell my daughter that we're doing God's work.
God's work.
There we go.
Yeah. I'll tell her if you need me to. I'm here for you. You can use the sound clip. Use it in the back of the book. Matt Jackson from Never Gets Old, Harmony Constant says,
that will be our promo. Our promo for the book.
Yeah.
Doing God's work.
That's great.
Honestly, if you're a Monkees fan, that's part of it. I mean, and that's a big not seen thing that people do want. So
well, they kind of teased us with the comic books again when the Good Times album came out. Which video was it? It was one of the two videos that they used.
She Makes Me Laugh. Right?
Or
no,
you bring the summer. Okay, it was one of those two. But they actually, one of them had animation, but it was different animation. But one actually used frame grabs.
Nez's son actually did the video for it, which was cool because he merged all the albums and stuff, which I thought, oh, that's sweet.
And then they put the lyrics in the word balloons, and hey, there we go. And you go, where did these drawings come from? Oh, they had comic books 800 years ago, so there we go.
Actually, a few years ago, and it ticks me off because I wish somebody had reached out for me to write it. Archie had crossovers where there's their own band, and they were with Kiss, and they went back in time, and and you name the band, and they would bump into them and do an issue.
Yeah.
And they did a Monkees one. So I'm going out of my mind. Mike Alliard, who did the Christmas album, he had part to do with it and was doing covers for it. And Allred, that's his name, Allred. Yeah, and I'm a comic book guy anyway, so I know these people. And they come out with it. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. They're going to nail Nez's personality, and Mickey's going to be zany. And it comes out. And have you read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you mess up? You have a 2-season television show to go from. Besides the trillion of interviews, you couldn't nail their voices.
Yeah. The 60s comic book series was far better done. And I think, the artist that did most of them that we interviewed, his name's Jose Delbo. He also did the adaptation to Yellow Submarine. He knew what he was doing. He also drew for Wonder Woman and other popular stuff beyond just pop music stuff. Sure. And so, he knew what he was doing. He had watched the show. He wasn't the writer, but, he knew, at least he got the guys' style down and how they looked. They didn't draw like Davy is 6 feet tall or something, so they're smart looking books, and the writer, I forgot the name of the writer off the top of my head, but obviously he had watched the show to enough extent to inject a little bit of humor into it as best you can, because you're kind of making a parody of a comedy in a certain way when you're doing this type of comic book. It's difficult writing. So
we these are the stories we didn't see on TV.
Some of the celebrities who we got inveigled into the project, actually, I think one was Butch Patrick, Eddie Munster, maybe James Lee Stanley, Peter Tork's musical accompaniment. I think they gave us actual reviews of the comic and which like stories from the comic might have made great episodes.
Oh, okay.
So there were some people that actually read them in the day,
Yeah.
Dan Parent, who's the artist for the typical Archie comic book today, he knows me as a writer and as a Mr. Monkey guy. And he said to me at a convention, he goes, "You should have written that." He goes, they didn't get their personalities at all. You should have written it. I'm like, thank you. Can we go back in time and maybe fix that?
Well, you never know. I mean, this book project might actually spur a thought of making some new Monkees comic books. You never know. It's like
there is an audience
because there's only 17 made. One of them was a reprint of the first issue, so really only 16 real original issues way back when.
Wow.
And there hasn't been anything since. I mean, there was some Monkees comics and some British annuals and little trade paperbacks and things like that over the years. But yeah, it's like Monkees has been really popular, certainly for the last 40 years. There's kind of a break between the 60s and 80s a little bit, but really popular since I think the mid 80s. And, certainly time is ripe to bring back the Monkees in that format.
I always think of Nez saying, the Monkees are not nostalgic. There's a very current energy that always runs through it. And God, he would say things perfectly.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, because honest to God, it never dies. It's not like you go, oh, this is old fashioned. You're like, no, more, give me.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure if the right publisher had and wanted to do a graphic novel or something like that, I'm sure Mike Allred would be all over it. He's a huge fan. So it's like,
Yeah, he sure is a huge fan. I think there's another guy also, Mark, you'll remember. I forgot his name. I interviewed him for the Monkees interview show. Also a Monkees artist. Did covers.
Scott Shaw that did the covers.
Scott Shaw, who did your cover.
2 Monkees books. And yeah, he's a huge Monkees fan. He also worked for Rhino Records. He also designed the Just Us logo design with their heads in the Monkees logo and things like that.
Now, wait, did he do that great cover for Rhino where it's the Rhino with the monkey shirt and Nez's hat? It was like the cover of it's I think so, because I think I saw him online commenting on it, writing it on something.
I'm not sure. The two I know he did. He designed the Just Us album, and he designed the Barrel Full of Monkees children's album. Not the one that came out in '71 or so, but it came out in the '90s or something. It was on Kid Rhino. It was supposed to be a kids record of Monkees tunes.
I remember that. I remember they had Papa Jean's Blues on there.
Yeah, so those are the two for Scott Shaw that I definitely knew he did. And plus he drew Rocky Rhino for the Rhino catalog for
that's
a number
what I mean.
of years.
It was Rocky Rhino, and it's this classic one with it's all monkey stuff around him, and he's driving the monkey mobile. And he has the Nez hat, but it's the Rhino. I remember because I used to get them in the mail, and I'd be like, "Oh, all right."
Yeah. He probably did that one. Yeah,
I bet it's him. Yeah.
Because the other artist, but he only did Rhino stuff in the early days, is William Stout. But I think he's a fan too because I think he did that Beatles songs album.
He did Beatles songs.
Yeah, the one that had
the controversial.
Lennon's Killer on the cover, and things like that.
Ooh, yeah, that'll get your attention.
So I met both of them. Well, Scott Shaw's a friend of mine, but I met William Stout before. Both great guys, and it's like if we were ever to redo a Monkees book, you could get all 3 of them to do issues. I'm sure.
Oh, sure.
If not more,
So here's hoping, and like I said, you guys keep on keeping on with what you're doing because I'm thrilled. Anything you do to add to the love of any band. I always say it for myself. It's not about me. It's about celebrating what we love.
Yeah.
Like ripples. Let's make more people aware of the great stuff that, energize us.
To bring it full circle, we can have the Monkees meet the Turtles, and then Chip Douglas can sit there and go, "Which one do I go to?" Which one?
Yeah. I'll play with these guys and produce these guys. How about that?
Dilts will take the pictures and we'll just ogle over it all.
Exactly. Well, Charles, I'll see you in a couple weeks, right? You're going to be a chiller?
Yes. I'll have copies of all my books there, including the new unbelievable hardcover of the Turtles A to Z, AM Radio. The website is www.notjusthappytogether.com. So if you don't get it in person from me, you can get it on online or through Amazon, all the regular places.
And honestly, guys, who all that are listening and watching, these are the guys. These are the books that you want to get. They're fun. They're. If you didn't know something, you'll know by the end. And doesn't read like an encyclopedia of boring nonsense. It's fun. It's
fun.
Spreading the love.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I'm gonna let you guys go because we've been chatting an hour, and I don't want to be greedy. Let you guys get back to your lives. But
Thank you for letting us spread the love.
My pleasure. Hey, like I said to you last time, anytime you guys ever want to come on and shoot the bull about music or anything, I'm here.
We love it.
All right.
Thank you.
No problem. We'll talk to you guys later. And thanks everybody for listening. And remember, Stay excited, everybody.
The Never Gets Old podcast is part of the Forever Adventure Network and made possible by your donations through Patreon. If you'd like to help us out, please go to the Forever Adventure Network by Mac Jackson on Patreon and help by subscribing, rating, and reviewing wherever podcasts are heard. We also have a Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube channel. The show's music is by Harmony Constant and available wherever music is sold. Thanks for listening, everybody. And remember, stay excited.
The Forever Adventure Network.
Welcome to the adventure.